Hey, I'm back with another critique video, this time from Alex Huey of Phoenix, Arizona. Alex saw the video from Duncan Corbel and thought, hey, maybe I can get some help too. He sent me this video of him flying his laser. It's a low-wing laser with 180 horsepower. I met Alex at the Borrego contest last year, I think, and I'm very impressed with how he's flying the Sportsman routine. It's at a high level already. There are things that can be done to make it a little better. I'm going to help him with those. Watch along with me as I go through the flight. He's using a fixed mount for his camera right behind his head, which gives an interesting viewpoint. In some ways, it's a little better. In some ways, it's a little hard to pick up some of the things that are going on, but we get a lot of information out of this just the way it is. Now, if you have a video you want to send to me, please do. I've got a queue already of several videos from people that I've met online after posting my video with Duncan. I guess it was yesterday, right? So a lot of people want help, and that's no problem. I love to do it. If we get too much backlog, I might kind of space it out a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to run through this one and maybe another one today even because I have some free time. And it's a good opportunity for everybody to follow along. So this is Alex with his laser, low-wing laser, 180 horsepower. He'll be flying the Sportsman Known sequence. And Alex made a point of telling me, do not be afraid to be harsh because he can take it. So we're gonna test that out and see if that's true. Okay, so we are now beginning. The WAGs are already done. The sequence is starting, and the first figure is going to be a 45 up. So we're gonna watch Alex now. So he's coming in hot, and an interesting, okay, right off the bat, interesting that he is moving from the full throttle position to a lower throttle position, kind of jockeying the throttle on the 45. Much better than that generally is to just go ahead and come in lower, pull a little steeper angle. Believe it or not, it's better to be steep. It doesn't hurt you to be a little steep. We always train people to fly at 45 degrees, but the reality is as you move into advanced unlimited, it's pretty much to your benefit to be steeper. The judges don't seem to mind it. It takes up a little less space and lets you control your speed better to be steeper. So if that would help you, Alex, give that a shot. But in any case, if you're trying to control your airspeed with the throttle on the 45 up line, that's just a lot of work. There's no real need to do that. Just hit your airspeed, know what it should be, pull to 45, and dumbly keep the throttle on full. A little better approach for you. Okay, let's continue. Good. Okay, that's a nice long 45. So maybe that's where he's coming from with pulling the throttle. But still, we can have a nice 45, a long one. Okay, nose should be higher here for the spin. This is a 1.5 turn spin. The entry looked really good. It's a little short line between the 45 and the spin. Not wrong, but it could be even maybe another beat longer. The nose could be higher. And otherwise, I think that was a pretty good spin entry. It looked like all three axes were moving simultaneously, which of course, what we want. So that's a good job there. And I'm going to continue on here now. We'll look for the stop. Okay, a little bit of head movement during the spin, which is natural because you're trying to pick things up. If you can, try and look straight ahead during the spin. It helps you out a little bit. And on the stop, I think I'm stopping it where he stopped. Yeah. So the spin stop is a good stop, but it's not quite perfect. But what I like about that is even though the spin did not stop exactly, and I'm assuming it should have stopped lined up with its road, I'm sure. But even though it didn't, I think it's great he didn't try and fix that. Very good idea. You can get away with a lot of error if you don't show it to the judges. Whatever you have for an error, just stick with it and fix it during the pull. So let's see if he does that or if he tries to fix it before the pull. And okay, so a little bit of movement there to fix the spin error after the pull, and that's just visible to the judges. As you come around, you stop. It's easy to see the planes continue to rotate, and that just shows the judges how much error you had. Probably they wouldn't have noticed at all, and you could continue at the wrong angle and then blend it out during the pull, and that would be a better technique for you. So that's one thing you could do, be a little different. I'm also not entirely convinced that you're vertical. I see you looking out at the sight. Not a bad idea, but I think you're probably a little positive here. And I'm just going to watch as you continue this line. Okay, so not terrible, but I can see on this line as you're continuing through that the nose is moving relative to the ground, and you're actually getting a little bit more positive. Whether you were doing that because you thought you were negative from looking at the side window, I don't know. But make sure that once you pick an angle, it doesn't matter anymore if it's correct. Just like when you have your rotation and you've finished your spin, it's always, to you, it should always feel perfect. Let it feel perfect. Convince the judges it's perfect. Don't worry about making a fix. It doesn't look good to make a fix. So that's just a minor thing. The spin was very close and probably could get away with some of these little fixes, but it's still better technique not to try that. So that's something for you to think about. Okay, now we have a pull, and this I just love. I love this pull. That's exactly the kind of stick movement we want Coco Bessier, the coach we use for the U.S. team, former French coach and world champion, talks about this as a jolt. We want to jolt the stick back. I mentioned about moving it briskly. And either way of talking about it is great. But what's interesting about this, if you watch the stick, is whenever you do that, whenever you jolt or move the stick briskly, you'll find that it doesn't take as much elevator as you think, not as much movement as you think to get a very high amount of G. It just doesn't take much, but it does take a lot of pressure. So you'll see him jolt the stick and then kind of relax a little bit. That's all fine. I don't think that's a problem. I like how he's moving it. I love how he's snapping it back to the neutral position when he reaches level flight. Very good technique. So let's watch that again. Jolt and pop it. Good. Now, be careful when you're popping that much, especially with two hands. You don't get a little movement of the nose down and up. But and your two-hand technique, a lot of people do that. I've gone back and forth several times already. There's many schools of thought. At this point, I'm now doing outside snaps with two hands and pretty much everything else with one hand because I find I can move the stick well enough without it. And previously, I did everything two hands. I mean, I just don't know what the best way to do it is. Everyone has their own way. But one thing I'll tell you that I've found that I like with having one hand is I just feel like I get a good bracing of my shoulders against the side of the airplane, and I can hold onto the throttle, and I actually move my hand up to the bar that's above the throttle quite often, so it's locked in there, and it keeps my body from moving. And I found that keeping my body centered in the airplane is extremely important to me. If I take my hands and put them on the stick, I no longer have anything to center my body. And I sometimes find myself over on one side of the airplane where I drift with my center position. So I find it better to have one hand, but I confess it's very hard to move the stick to the right with one hand. And that's just because your pec is a lot stronger than your rotator cuff. So it's much harder to move the stick to the right. So for right hand rolls and outside snaps, which I sometimes do in that direction, I will often use both hands. Do whatever works for you. Okay, continuing on now, and we are now going to, and I can't remember what the next figure is. Okay, it's a vertical line. Oh, it must be a hammerhead, I think. So very good on the vertical. Looks good, good technique. Might be a little early, and you're definitely, I would say, yeah, solidly negative down here, it looks like. It's so hard to tell without having your head camera, without having a head camera, just having your, let's look at this again here. I'm going to actually go back. I'm going to watch the whole thing, the whole figure again. Okay, pull looks good. Oh, actually, I can give you some thoughts right there. Okay, the pull, don't look left so quickly. Look forward. You have peripheral vision that'll help you see the horizon leave, and it'll let you know if you're tilting the airplane or swinging the nose over during the pull. And that's more important than what's happening out in the wing until you get near vertical. Only when you're near vertical does it matter that you look out to the left. So there's no real reason to look out to the left so soon. And also, as you progress and fly advanced and unlimited, it's a bad idea to look out the left unless you really have to, because it can mess up your inner ear. I mentioned that, I think, in the last video. I can't remember, but I mention that all the time, so I get confused. But anyway, it's a bad idea to be looking out the side window unless you really need to, because it can make it so your inner ear gets messed up, and then you're not going to be able to fly for a little bit. So avoid looking out the side window in that situation until you're near the vertical, about right here. So you look out front, look out front, look out front. Once you lose the horizon, now look out the side window for that last little bit, maybe 30 degrees or so. So that's good. Okay, vertical otherwise looks good. Now I'm just going to think, I think you're probably kicking early. It's impossible to say from this, but based on how long it's taking for the hammerhead, of course I don't know how big your rudder is, etc. And this view right here is making me think that that on the line you were positive, and that during this hammerhead you're pushing forward to correct that, and you end up, I'm sure this is negative. This is very negative. It's very hard to tell with this view, but I think that's quite a bit negative. In fact, yeah, as I watch the video, I see more dilation of the image up here than down here, which is an indication, I think it's a clue, that you probably are negative on that line. And now we have a pull. Good pull. Really nice, just great technique. And there's an example of where I think the nose did go up above the horizon and back down. If this was a head cam video, I wouldn't comment on that so much because your neck and everything is compressing. But since this is fixed, well, we could also have some elasticity of the camera mount, but anyway, you see the nose goes up and then back down, probably not visible from the ground, but that's just something to be aware of. And I see you're mostly left hand here, looks like. You got your right hand below it. Okay, now we should be on the loop. This is 2018 Sportsman, so the next figure's a loop. And very good so far. Okay, we need more float earlier. And then what happens here? That's So that loop gets a lot faster. I'm just going to watch that again with everybody here. Yeah. Okay, so the thing about a loop is we want, if it's, imagine a circle here, we want the most G's at the bottom. I want very little G at the top. Now if the loop were infinitely large, we have exactly 1 G, negative 1 G at the top. Okay, but it's not infinitely large. So there must be some G that's greater than negative 1 at the top. But whatever it is, the top is where the least amount of G is, right? It might be 0 G, it might be 1 G, depends on how fast you're going at the bottom and how big your loop is. But in any case, it's a circle. So the G has to be balanced out. And what you're going to have is basically 2 decisions to make about the float. The first one is, if I'm doing the loop this way, if you watch my hands here, is where in the loop do we begin our float? And then the second question is, so that's stick is back, and then we start to float, and we blend it to a different position, right? Second decision is what position to be in. So it's where do I start the blend to the float, and where do I finish the blend, and then what is the blend position? But except for that, the loop is very simple. The loop is an instantaneous, acceleration, instantaneous application of G-force, and the stick just sits there dumbly until it's time for the float. Once the float happens, we move the stick to the position we want for the float, beginning at some certain point, let's say right here, as we're coming up, and then finishing the blend, not fast, but not super slow, maybe a movement like this. And then the float position is held and maintained as we go around the top of the loop. And then in about the same position that we started, symmetrically, we then blend the stick back to where we need it to be, and it sits at that exact same spot again, the spot we had it at the beginning of the loop. All the energy you're losing going up is the energy you get back going down, basically. So there's not a lot of thinking needed. And what you have to be careful of is, on the backside of the loop, the biggest mistake people make is on the backside of the loop, they start increasing the G as they get to the bottom, and the loop ends up carving very hard at the bottom. And they'll get even a pinched third quarter and pinched fourth quarter. The second half will be smaller than the first half. So that's kind of what I'm seeing here. So I would say good pull, and I would say the float begins now, and we would be floating, 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 and now the stick would come back to that original starting position and sit there. But what I see is right now you start increasing the G, and the rotation rate increases dramatically. It doesn't match what happened at the beginning, so it's not going to be symmetrical. Okay, next figure. Again, looking to the left too soon. We already covered that. And this must be the wedge, so pulling down to 45. Trying to remember the sequence as we go through it here. Good. Okay, let's watch this line. That looks pretty good. And 204. There's a lot of, not a lot, but quite a bit of nose movement, too much nose movement during that. And the line after is very short. You're going much faster after the 204. It needs to feel shorter. The timing is not the same. It probably isn't quite 2 to 1, but it's something like that. But that still seems too short to me. So short after, I'm going to call you on that. And let's see what's next. It's a good pull. You have really good technique on your pulls. Okay, this is Immelman. Half roll. Good. It's a nice figure. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, now I think we have a roll. Okay, roll to the left. Looks pretty good. It's hard to tell. Okay, and now we have a turn, 180-degree turn. And this looks good too. I'm actually going to go back to the start of the turn though. Okay, that's good. I mean, that's a good figure, but let me just go back here. Okay, so what I tell everybody is, I actually use something vulgar I'm not going to say on YouTube, but, one potato, maybe potato, one potato, two potato, yeah. So we roll, let me start over. 180-degree turn, all the competition turns. The deal is they're not coordinated. They're not supposed to be coordinated. You're supposed to establish a bank angle and separate that from the pull. Now you're doing that, Alex. It's a good technique. But I'm just going to argue that you need more separation. It doesn't hurt you. There's no downside from a criteria perspective, and it simply shows more control. I would probably double how much the stick you have when you roll it and you stop. I'd count one potato, two potato, and then I would pull. Now, the thing about that is everybody, I talk to the sportsman level, they bank and they pull, and they think they're pulling with intent. But when you slow them down, what they find out is that they're pulling because they're kind of losing that nearly knife edge position, and the plane's starting to drift anyway, and they've learned that they only have this much time to bank and hold it before the nose is going to drift. So they kind of learn that timing instead of the timing they want, which is roll, 1 potato, 2 potato, pull. And same thing at the end. We pull, stop, 1 potato, 2 potato, roll. Deliver it. Without that, what happens is we roll, and the nose kind of sits there for a second, roll, sits there, and then kind of starts to drift, and they pull. So that's being a victim. And I mentioned that in my video with Duncan about his spin. We don't want to be a victim. We need to be able to do whatever we want with the airplane, and then we choose how to be artistic. So I would like to see you, maybe you can already do it. I don't know. But from the video, it's just quick enough that I wonder if I had asked you to hold that position for 5 seconds, could you do it? And there's no reason why you can't. You can do it in a decathlon, you can do it in a Citabria, you can certainly do it in your laser. Maybe you already know that, but if not, let's just give it a shot sometime. So here we go. Let's watch it again. So roll, 1 potato, maybe half a potato. We need a whole potato at least. 2 potatoes is even better. It's a nice filling meal for you. Okay, there we go. Now through the turn, it's very good. Looks pretty constant. The rollout is good. Very good technique on the ailerons and elevator all throughout your flying. It's good stuff. Now this is interesting because you push your hat. Okay, good. This is a goldfish, so it had a really good negative push, and you did a really strong negative push. You knew your hat was going to come off. I have no complaint, except I'll let this figure finish first. So this would be like the loop. Need a good float. Not a lot of float in the goldfish, but some. Good roll technique here. Good pull. Goldfish looks good. Okay, let's just talk about your hat. Don't wear hats. Don't wear sunglasses. Just get them out of your mind. I see people in Sportsman all the time wearing hats or sunglasses. Yeah, you look cool with the sunglasses on, and your hat, I know it keeps you from getting the sun in your eyes. You just got to get over it. If you're going to fly with negative G's, eventually that stuff's going to come off. It will be dangerous in the cockpit, and you don't want to take your hand off the stick or something and put it on your head. I mean, that's great, but that's not what we want to do. So just take the hat, put it away, and let the sun be in your eyes and deal with it. I don't fly with anything, maybe a helmet, but I don't fly with anything in the airplane that isn't completely strapped down. Let me tell you, it is locked tight. There, nothing could get loose in that cockpit. I once safety inspected someone's airplane. He had a sock on one of the sticks. And I'm not trying to pick on him. He knows who he is, but it seems like such a small thing, but even a sock can ruin your day. There's just no reason to have anything loose in the airplane at all. No hats, no handkerchiefs, nothing loose. Everything buttoned down. And that's a discipline that will save your life someday, even though you might be applying it to things that don't matter. It's a good discipline to have. So that's something, and then I think it's just funny you take your hand off the stick to do that. I mean, you have all this shuffling with hand on the throttle, both hands, hand up here. That's just more movement. It'll work for you in Sportsman. But as you go through intermediate, advanced, unlimited, if you do, I hope you do, because you're flying well. But if you as you go past Sportsman, there's no longer time to do that stuff anyway. So okay, enough on that. That's my thought there. And then I think just one more figure, 2 more figures, 1 more figure. I think I can't remember. Okay, so it must be a 5/8 loop. Yeah, very good. I like a lot of the stuff. I mean, I think you changed the line in that. I feel like I'm picking on you a little bit now because I just harped on you about your hat. But let me tell you on this. Yeah, I'm really sure. Actually, we do need to go over this. So there's your line right there. I can see this line in the road here, or whatever it is, river. And then we roll. Now, it's always hard to tell because the nose, it's hard to tell exactly the angle the camera is above the nose. So let's watch right now. Whatever we're looking at, there's a little dry lake bed or something here, and I can see you covering up a little bit more and more of it as you go down. So just, standard stuff. Make sure you're not, as you're accelerating, you're not getting more and more positive on the line. Make sure you're holding the line. That will take more and more stick pressure. And that should be the end of the flight. So now we should have a wag out. 1. Yeah, so that's it. Okay. Great job. And as I mentioned before, Alex is already scoring really well in Sportsman. He's good at this. And I seeing his technique from the cockpit, I can see why. It's exactly the kind of stick movement you should have. Very brisk stick movement in the elevator. Really nice stick movement on the ailerons. As I watch the flying, I kind of wonder why it takes so much stick force to move the ailerons. Just watching your body, it looks like it takes more stick force than I would think for the roll rate you're getting. The roll rate is not terribly fast, your airplane. So you might want to think about whether your spades are sized correctly. And if you haven't had a chance to go and kind of rework your ailerons and make sure everything's set up the way you like, maybe it's a good idea to do that. Don't know, but it does look like you're really working hard to get the airplane to roll at what looks like maybe 200 and some, maybe 200 degrees per second. I could measure it, but it doesn't look like it's fast. And technique wise, just strong throughout. Rolls look pretty good. I mentioned the 180. I think you could do some slow roll drills. A very common thing I ask people to do is do 10-second rolls. I would go through some of those. I also ask people to do linked rolls. Think about doing 3 rolls in sequence without stopping. Good skill for you to work through. And otherwise, just keep it coming. I can't wait to see another video when you get the 2019 sequence down. We just released it, so take a look at it. And then let me have that one to look at too, and I'll be glad to help you some more. Hey, thanks for stopping by, everybody. Thank you so much, Alex. You're very brave to let everybody look at where you are right now, and to have me come in and tell you that you're not doing the right thing sometimes. But that's just a really brave thing to do. Very generous of you. Really appreciate you as a pilot, and it's so good to know you. So thanks a lot, everybody, and I will see you next time, probably pretty soon. Bye-bye.